Howdy, anybody that might be watching this. What is the link to this thing? We've got to figure out how to link things, link God Hour Live into its own domain. I mean, it's not totally necessary, but it'd be nice. I wonder if I were to split screen the web browser and the editor. Where's my little three dots? They take them that way with this new iOS. I hate the new iOS, by the way. Used to have a great way to tile the windows. Window. Alright. Show all. No, it's not going to do it. This used to be so simple. You just hit the three buttons and say split screen. You were good to go. That can be trashed altogether. They're trying to make it like Windows or something. Anyway, the more important thing is that we talk about God and or Jesus. So let me stop being focused on the technical stuff about this web editing. I'm certainly rusty, it would appear. But rather, let's celebrate. Let's be thankful that we've received enough donations to have a website for at least a year. I mean, I can dig into my own pockets after a year, I would imagine. But we got the domain for a few years and the hosting package for a year. So we're doing all right. Morning, everybody, or evening, as it were. Just commenting that we now have our own domain and a rudimentary site put on it for the time being. How is everybody today? If you caught the God Hour short, you might notice that I'm injured. I got stabbed yesterday, essentially. But it was me that did it, so what can you do? Take vengeance by stabbing myself in return. Yeah, I got some nice stitches there. So that explains the haggard appearance. Everything I do with my hand hurts like hell. So the website stuff's coming along greatly. I mean, absolutely wonderful. That the money was put up by, a volunteer. I would more or less consider that a tithe. But that's a good topic. Why don't we talk about tithing? Giving away 10% of your paycheck every week, every Sunday, I don't necessarily think God wants you to do that. He does want you to sacrifice But sometimes giving away that 10% may cause you or your children or some aspect of your family to go without. Um, Certainly, in today's economy, a lot of us are living paycheck to paycheck and worried about having gas to get to work the next day, and to ask for that 10% every week to come off the top. I just don't. Uh, well, thank you, Patrick. And it's good to meet you. Uh, this site is not made for children, but children are welcome in any religious setting, I believe. Um, so if something is confusing, just ask, and I'll try to explain it more for a kid. Because 9-year-old, you're still a kid. Wish I was 9 years old again. uh, in any case, the idea of tithing, giving away 10% of your money, the way I look at it, time is money. So if you give away 10% of your time, you're essentially giving away 10% of your money. Does that make a logical sense to anybody other than myself? Um, I think doing work in the name of the Lord for 10% of your waking hours makes a lot more sense than throwing 10% of your cash into a plate that you don't know what happens to after that. Certainly in the mega churches where the pastor makes three, four, $500,000 a year, if not $1 million a year. I just don't see that being very productive use of the money. God doesn't need the money. Uh, the idea is the church is going to use it to pay their staff and send people on missions and feed the hungry. But all too often, I clearly see that not being what my money's going towards. Uh, so I'll throw a little bit in the plate when I'm at church, but I'd much rather apply myself doing something that I, 99.99% sure God would approve of. Uh, like helping somebody learn to read if they're not able to read, like a foreign, like a Mexican guy that only speaks Spanish. Uh, Help him learn English. Instead of complaining that they don't speak our language, teach them our language and try to learn a little bit of theirs while you're at it. And, I took Spanish in high school, 2 years, bombed, learned a bunch of stuff that when I went to Mexico didn't really apply. But I've got my customers that are Mexican and they do speak a little English. Um, but we in turn teach each other a little bit. Um, like an idiot the other day, he was asking me for yellow, yellow. I thought he said something yellow. I'm like, yellow what? Yellow American Spirit? Didn't realize the irony in that. But no, 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 no. Outside, outside. Yellow. Oh, ice. Oh, okay, okay. And the customer behind us said something rude. Said he knows how to speak English. He's just screwing. I said, no, no, you don't understand. We're teaching each other. Every time that we encounter each other, we learn a little bit about each other's language. Um, I think that's the way we should approach foreigners. I think English should be the national language, but I think they have every right to speak whatever language they want to in their home. But conducting business and so on, help them learn English if they don't already know enough to do so. Just as I wouldn't go to Mexico and expect them to all know how to speak English. Lord knows enough Americans can't speak it. um, But I digress. Um, Hi, crazy girl, by the way, if you're still there. And Pizza Who Unknown. They want us to add a Q&A sticker about my favorite discovery or your favorite discovery that I've discovered, uh, or somebody discovered and it happens to be my favorite. Because I mean, geez, mm, my favorite discovery. I don't have one. All discoveries are great. Mm. Everything that you learn or discover is fun, even if at times it hurts. um, so I'm off work today, lounging, lazing, so to speak. I tried to do some work, but my hand is not allowing it. And in fact, I should probably be disinfecting it every 20 minutes because it was a really bad cut. It wasn't a cut, it was a stab. The whole, like, knife went into the fleshy part between my thumb and my finger. And I'm reminded of it every second I move that hand. I can't even pick up a bottle of peroxide. Here, it's a little. Oh, good, it stopped raining. I don't want to gross people out by letting them see this disgusting wound that I'm treating. Uh, on the other hand, I'm a guy, so I'm kind of proud of it too. So. But stitches are so annoying, aren't they? Just want to go ahead and yank them out right now. But no, considering the level of infection according to that peroxide, probably shouldn't do that. In fact, I should probably be putting some kind of bandage on them. I don't know. Anyway, uh, do we have any web developers in the house? I'm interested in finding a way to use WordPress to update the verse of the day and quote of the day quickly and easily. I mean, it takes 3 minutes or less on YouTube. And that's the idea. I wanted to be easily maintainable. So I have a job that isn't done voluntarily as well. And I apologize for being an old, decrepit man, constantly in pain and groaning. It is what it is. Uh, Now, we can always continue studying Acts if you're understandably joining or watching to discuss the Bible or our faith in general as Christians and possibly just Christian curious, if that's the politically correct way to say it. But we left off with Acts 17. Make sure we haven't already did 17. Yeah, we did 16, so Acts 17 naturally follows. Thessalonica and Berea. Hello there. Now read King James Version exclusively, so if it's dry and you don't like it, I'm sorry. I consider it the closest thing to the original that I can, understand. Aramaic and Hebrew and Greek notwithstanding. Verse 1, now when they had passed through Amphipolis, and Apollonia, they came to Thessalonica. Where was a synagogue of the Jews, and Paul, as his manner was. And if you remember, Paul's manner is very brash and bold, and hey, what's up, Jesus says? Um, Paul doesn't care what people think. He's very outspoken. So I like that they reference that there at verse 2. And Paul, as his manner was, went in unto them and 3 Sabbath days reasoned with them out of the Scriptures, opening and alleging that Christ must needs have suffered, and risen again from the dead, and that this Jesus, whom I preach unto you, is Christ. Paul's just going in and telling them like it is. I like Paul more and more every time I read a verse pertaining to him. And some of them believed and consorted with Paul and Silas, and of the devout Greeks a great multitude, and of the chief women not a few, just to say more than a few. The Bible tends to diminish the importance of women, but don't kill me, I'm just reading the book. But the Jews which believed not, moved with envy, took unto them certain lewd fellows of the baser sort. He's being as polite as he can, just not to tell it like it is. Took unto them a bunch of perverted, gross, depraved sort. That's just my interpretation of that. And gathered a company, and set all the city on an uproar, and assaulted the house of Jason, and sought to bring them out to the people. And when they found them not, they drew Jason and certain brethren unto the rulers of the city, crying, these that have turned the world upside down are come hither also, whom Jason hath received, and these all do contrary to the decrees of Caesar, saying that there is another king, one Jesus. And they troubled the people and the rulers of the city when they heard these things. And when they had taken security of Jason and of the other, they let them go. Now, I don't know who Jason is exactly, but Jason gave them, Paul and Silas entry into his house, and therefore, he's a bad guy, according to the Roman Empire, basically believed Caesar was the divine authority, or maybe not divine, but the ultimate authority. Verse 10. And the brethren immediately sent away Paul and Silas by night unto Berea, who coming thither went to the synagogue of the Jews. These were more noble than those in Thessalonica, in that they received the word with all readiness of mind, and searched the Scriptures daily whether those things were so. Therefore many of them believed, also of honorable women, which were Greeks, and of men, not a few. But when the Jews of Thessalonica had knowledge that the word of God was preached to Paul at Berea, the first place they went, they came thither also. They followed them to Berea, basically, and stirred up the people. And then immediately the brethren sent away Paul to go, as it were, to the sea. But Silas and Timotheus, not Timothy at this point, and bear in mind, I'm just a guy, I'm not a preacher, I've never been in any preaching school. So a lot of this is new to me, even as I read it. But I'm assuming Timotheus is Timothy from the books of Timothy. No, I don't know. I wouldn't know where to get any gabagool. Unfortunately, Tony Soprano's dead. But anyway, verse 15, and they that conducted Paul brought him unto Athens, and receiving a commandment unto Silas and Timotheus, for to come to him with all speed, they departed. Now, while Paul waited for them at Athens, his spirit was stirred in him when he saw the city wholly given to idolatry. Knowing Paul by his spirit being stirred, I'm assuming he was pissed. He just got pissed off. That's kind of the way Paul goes about things. He's very emotional. Um, Therefore disputed he in the synagogue with the Jews and with the devout persons, and in the market daily with them that met with him. Then certain philosophers of the Epicureans and of the Stoics, that's Stoicks, encountered him, and some said, what will this babbler say? Others some, he seemeth to be a setter forth of strange gods, because he preached unto them Jesus and the resurrection. And they took him and brought him into Areopagus, perhaps, saying, may we know what this new doctrine whereof thou speakest is. For thou bringest certain strange things to our ears, we would know therefore what these things mean. Not an unreasonable question. Someone spouting a new religion, basically, you're going to want to know what it's based upon. So I can't be angry with the Greeks, the Romans, the Jewish for going, what are you on about? um, Probably thought they were insane. Certainly many thought Jesus was insane. Verse 21, in parentheses, for all the Athenians and strangers which were there spent their time in nothing else but either to tell or to hear some new thing. That's an interesting translation or way of phrasing. All they like to do apparently is stand around and gossip. This is the way I interpret that. But either to tell or to hear some new things. And we still do that. We like to be the bearer of news. Even after the State of the Union, I went into work and, hey, y'all catch that State of the Union? No, let me tell you what happened. Yeah. Which I thought was a pretty good State of the Union, at least the end. Very honorable, dignified. Trump had a couple, conceited, self-centered jokes I didn't think were funny, but other than that, I do appreciate him honoring those servicemen. Anyway, one last section here in the book of, or chapter 17 of the book of Acts, Paul's address. Verse 22, then Paul stood in the midst of Mars Hill. And I'm guessing that since uh, you know, the Greeks and the Romans, like our planets are named today, they're named after the Roman versions of the Greek gods. Jupiter, not Zeus. Um, Mars, I don't know what the Greek god Mars was. I know Venus is Aphrodite. Um, Somebody just texted me and said she's there, like at my house. I'm expecting a guest today. Nothing weird. She's actually helping me since I'm injured. Anyway, let's finish this little bit of Paul's address. Ye men of Athens, I perceive that in all things ye are too superstitious. For as I passed by and beheld your devotions, I found an altar with this inscription, To the unknown God. Whom therefore ye ignorantly worship, him declare I unto you, God that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands. Good point. Good point. If you create the universe, you don't need to have a temple to live in on earth. Verse 25. Neither is worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything, seeing he giveth to all life and breath and all things, and hath made of one blood all nations of men for to dwell on all the face of the earth, and hath determined the times before appointed and the bounds of their habitation, that they should seek the Lord, if haply they might feel after him and find him, though he be not far from every one of us. Now that's some wonderfully, that's some good verse of the day stuff right there. Um, Several of them there, but I like in particular, that first part. God that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands. Neither is worshipped with men's hands as though he needed anything. God doesn't need our tithing. He doesn't need anything from us. And if he gets bored with us, he can just destroy us and make new people. This is kind of the privilege of being an omnipotent God, um, which is why we should fear him. Um, One of our shorts recently was to fear God and obey his commandments is all that is required of man or women. Uh, it's that easy. It really is. Um, anyway, to wrap this up, verse 28 For in him we live and move and have our being, as certain also of your own poets have said, for we are also his offspring. I'm coming there. For as much then as we are the offspring of God, we ought not to think that the Godhead is like unto gold or silver or stone, graven by art and man's device. And the times of this ignorant God, bear with me, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Thank you so much for doing that.
And I think, I thought that front tire was low, but maybe it's not. Tim, I was going to get Tim to ask you about air.
You or
But,
me? When you? I'll check it.
well, I mean, you're in the middle. It's okay.
Well, we're almost done with Acts 17. We're on the last couple verses.
I think it just was on an angle.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was on an angle when I was at the store and it looked lower than it was.
I got a tire gauge. We'll check it out for you. Where were we at? Verse 30. We're going to wrap up this chapter with verse 30 through 33. In the times of this ignorance God winked at, but now commandeth all men everywhere to repent, because he hath appointed a day in the which he will judge the world in righteousness, by that man whom he hath ordained, whereof he hath given assurance unto all men, and that he hath raised him from the dead. King James Version notwithstanding, I know it sounds dry, hard to listen to, but let's push on. And when they heard of the resurrection of the dead, some mocked, and others said, We will hear thee again of this matter. So Paul departed from among them. Howbeit certain men clave unto him and believed, among the which was Dionysius the Areopagite, and a woman named Damaris, and others with them. Okay, that's going to wrap us up for the time being, and we may do another session later today. I don't have to work for once in my life. See y'all soon.